What's up, y'all? I'm sorry if you can't hear me. There's people mowing the grass and everything. I'm gonna try to talk as loud as I can without looking like an idiot to every other fucking person in this neighborhood, but there's just an update on my cars and stuff. I'm basically gonna most likely be selling the 65 New Yorker, because I decided to buy something a little bit older, a 1962 two-door 300. The lighting's kind of sucks ass right around this point, but whatever. At least at this angle that the car is, it's kind of be a little hard, but I'll just do a quick walk around and show you. I'm not going to start it right now due to the fact that right now this thing does not have a gas tank in it. It just has a little like container, like 2-gallon container of gas in the trunk, due to the fact that the guy was replacing, who this belonged to before, was replacing the gas tank and just never got around to it before he unfortunately passed away. So anyway, so under the hood we have a dual quad 383. It has already been converted to disc brakes, dual reservoir. I took the battery out of the New Yorker, put it in here due to the fact that that battery wasn't cheap, so I'm planning on keeping that battery. And now, one thing about these old cars is that I don't like is when people start putting like electronic ignition. I mean, I'm sure it's fine, but it's just me. For like, this has like an electronic choke and electronic ignition and all sorts of stuff. I'm planning on converting all that back to what it would have been originally, just due to the fact that a car this old, I think should be restored like it would have been back in like the 1960s, making it look like an early 60s hot rod. That's the plan. But I actually have a question for y'all. If you guys know, any of y'all know how to freaking convert this back to what it would have been originally. Every time I try to look up Edelbrock manual choke, it thinks I'm talking about like in the 1954 Fords where you actually have to pull the freaking choke out in order to start the damn thing, and that's not what I'm talking about when I say manual choke. I know it's kind of confusing. I'm probably going to try to call Edelbrock and ask them if there's any way, give them the model number off these carburetors and ask them if they have any suggestions, because if not, then I'm probably going to sell both these carburetors and buy ones that do not have electronic chokes on them. But anyway, the radiator has been replaced, so I'm not sure if this is the original 383. My guess is it is, but the guy who owned this before decided to put what looks more like a late 60s Mopar radiator in it. I'm not really sure. It's been a while since I've seen a late 60s Mopar radiator, so I'm not sure if this is even exactly what they look like. I know they look similar to this, but an original radiator would not have been this wide. It would have been about to here and would have come out further like this and everything. But honestly, it works good and everything, but some of the gauges don't work, like for the temperature and stuff like that. That's going to need to be fixed, of course. And I mean, this guy who owned this thing before had already done a shit ton of work to this thing. He redone the brakes, because originally on 1962 Chryslers the brakes were much more difficult than a 1965 Chrysler. They would have had two little adjustment things, and they were drum brakes. And what the guy had done is he put disc brakes on the front and later 1960s drum brakes on the back. So it's not all 4 disc brakes, but I have driven this down the road a little bit so far, and the braking is much better than in the 65 due to the fact that it has front disc brakes, which is very, very helpful. Now, as for the power on this thing in the motor, it does have a little bit more, I'd just say, oomph to the, when you go to accelerate, you can tell the difference. You can tell that there's a dual quad on there. I mean, I've tried, stepping on the gas a little bit on the 65, and you can see the hood come up, but it doesn't like come up as much as this thing does. I was just driving literally down this road, just stepped on the gas a little bit, and the whole front started to lift up and everything. I was like, damn. But anyway, I'll show you all the interior of this thing. Now, one thing that I am a big fan of, in 1960 to I think 62 was the last year that, actually I know it was the last year that they had this Astrodome dash. Now, I can try to show you, I probably can't, due to the fact that it's so bright out here right now, and it's like literally scorching hot. It's like 96 degrees where I'm at right now, which fucking sucks. But anyway, as you can see, it has crank windows. Now, in order to lock one of these doors, and I'll get out and show this too, there's no, if you notice, there's no like lock button or anything. You don't, there's nothing that you push down in order to lock it. The way they designed this is this opens when you pull it like that. You push it forward like that. And I don't know if you heard that or not, but that's how you lock it. And then that's unlocked, and then open the doors. Now, me personally, in an old car this old, I prefer to have crank windows, like I mentioned in the video of the 65 New Yorker. They're nice when they work, but they fail. Old motors like that and everything. Now, back to stuff that they quit doing after 1965, or 2, not 5. Get confused with that car. Anyway, they did not have a dash-mounted mirror. They also quit with the Astrodome. Now, this thing is extremely, I think it's really, really nice at night. Some people don't like these due to the fact that inside of here, for the electronics, there's voltage boosters or some sort of relay in there that converts it to a much higher voltage or something that makes it extremely bright. I mean, this dash is much brighter than in the 1965, and due to that fact that when you're working on these, even when you have them taken out, you generally want to wait like literally 4 or 5 days before you start working on them, because those little relays in there can hold a charge and they will actually zap you, which is would not be fun. Now, as for the transmission on this is actually one thing that I originally was not a fan of, but it makes this transmission very, very rare. There is no park selection on the push button transmission. All it has is reverse, neutral, drive, second, and first. This, originally when I saw pictures, I thought that this was the brake. You just slide it, but this is not. This is the turn signal indicator. And basically what you have to do to park this is, if you're parking on an incline, like the hood, you know, you're facing uphill when you park, I'd put it in probably first gear and put the parking brake on, and maybe carry a chalk around with me just to make sure that the damn thing doesn't roll away. I honestly was a little worried at first, because I was like, well, what happens if the parking brake fails? And you know, and also turn the wheel into the curb, so if it starts rolling, the curb will also stop your car. I mean, like I said, there's been people on forums like the 300 Club that were talking about how these transmissions are really, really bad. As long as you take care of them and you make sure constantly, or not really constantly, but check every once in a while and make sure everything's functioning, I don't think you'll have a problem. Now, they made 2 instrument clusters, back to the Astrodome instrument clusters. One that went to 120, which is what this is, but I also have, which also came with the car as a spare, one that goes from 0 to 150 miles an hour. And those were an option in the 300H, I think was the letter car number of this year. Now, I can try to show you a little bit of the lights in this car, but again, it's not going to show up that well, so I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how well this is going to work out, but I can at least maybe show you the brakes, because there's a little, what they call the rampant lion right there, and it lights, yeah, as you can see, it lights up every time you hit the brake or when the parking brake is on. So that's kind of nice. It's a little nice feature that I like. And I have a spare mirror for this thing. This one is not one of those little controlled by a little lever down here. And back in the early 60s, even if it was a remote control mirror, it did not have any electronics. Like I said, in an old car, I honestly don't want to have a bunch of electronical doodads. You can see the mirror back there. There's another spare mirror, I think from a later 60s, some kind of car. I don't know, it got thrown in with everything, so I was like, okay. But anyway, as you can see now, I'm gonna step back out of the car, demonstrate the lock, how the locks work, and show you a little bit, because this car does need a little bit of body work. It came out of New York, so as you can probably guess, being an East Coast car, it has a tiny bit of rot. It doesn't have a lot of rot, but there's literally just one spot, or actually technically on this car right now there's more than one spot. There's several spots, but the guy who originally owned this car, I don't know if you can see that, that's the one spot where there's rot, and then it has all sorts of, you know, dings and nicks and all sorts of shit going on right here on this fender. Now, he threw in, or the people who were selling the car threw in, because the original person who owned it had found a spare fender and had thrown it in. Now, this fender also needs a little bit of work, just right around there. Now, on eBay, we're trying to contact someone who has a 4-door Post 62 out in Vegas. His car has one of these, and it's in very, very good condition. It's like it's better than both of these two fenders combined, and it also has really good tail lights and everything. I mean, a lot of this shit on the 62s was 1 year only, like these tail lights, so they're very hard to come by. As you can see, that's the trunk. The trunk also, that was another thing about the one that's on eBay. The hood and both the trunk, in my opinion, either need to be fixed or replaced. As you can see, there's a little hole right there. That's a little bit of the rot, which isn't really that big of a deal because you can replace the trunk. Now, the thing that's worrying me the most is right here is where the most rot is. I don't know if you can really see that. I'm sorry about the lighting, y'all. I'm gonna be making videos on updates on this car because I'm planning on doing a full restoration on this thing, doing it proper. I mean, I'm not talking about making this thing some damn $1 million freaking show car, but at least to the point of my father has a 1964 300, and I want to make it look as nice as that. Now, as you can see, there's just that one little spot, and under here, it's solid. It's just right here where there's that little bit of rotting, which I'm thinking on just cutting this out, welding in a little piece of metal, and then that'll be fixed, and that's basically it. This thing does have dual exhaust. I do not like the way that the dual exhaust was run. I'm planning on putting maybe some hot rod headers and running some Flowmaster Super 44s. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do as pipe size yet, maybe 2.5. I'm not sure if the headers are really, really big. I'm not sure. I need to, you know, I'm not that good at, you know, I've never put headers on any sort of Mopar, so I just need to, you know, look more into it. But again, the what is it? Yes, the Newport on eBay. It has a very, very decent hood. I'm not a big fan of the hood scoop because, in my opinion, early 60s car should be kept, even if it's a two-door coupe, should be kept the way it would have looked, very classy, very, you know, very fancy, speckled with chrome all over. And they decided, the person who owned this before decided to put a hood scoop on, which wouldn't have been that big of a problem, except when I open the hood again, as you can see, they actually cut a hole in it, which I'm not a big fan of. So we need to find, or well, I need to find a new hood for this thing, which there is on eBay. A person who is selling, I think, who's trying to the starting bid on the Newport is like $700 or something, which if no one bids on it, we're gonna try to buy it for like 800 or 900 or something. I'll just offer it to them. But so this car, you know, it has its issues and everything, but it's gonna be a fun car, I think, at least. And that's good, I guess, is basically about it. I just have to, you know, now I have to cover everything back up due to the just damn extreme humidity and heat and everything. I really like the 65 New Yorker. It's just, it does have its problems with wiring and other issues, and I just like the styling of late 50s, early 60s Mopars a little bit better. Not much better, but a little bit. They just look more classy. I mean, when you look at it, the way like the windshield looks and the freaking quarter windows and everything, how all this shit looks, I just like it a lot better on a 62 than a 65. But anyway, again, that's gonna about do it, and I will be posting updates. Actually, that's actually not it. I was also gonna tell y'all what I was thinking on the paint scheme on this thing. This came with a roll of extremely expensive vinyl upholstery, which I thought was very odd because the guy was about to have it redone, and then he had to go into the hospital, and like I don't know if I mentioned earlier, he never made it out, unfortunately, the person who owned this before me. But the interior is red, the exterior originally was white. Now if the whole paint looked kind of like this, I would leave it this white color, except it doesn't. Like I said, it has surface rust in areas, so I'm thinking on keeping the top white and painting the body black. I think that would look really, really good. And also planning on switching the rims. These rims kind of look like police car rims, and I'd rather have wide white walls or something more of the late 50s, early 60s. You know, either 1-inch white walls or the wider white walls. But anyway, that's gonna about do it. Again, I'm gonna be making more videos on updates and all kinds of shit. we're actually getting ready to move to a place that has a garage and other things, so it'll be a lot easier to make videos like these without having all the noise and all of the other shit. But that'll about do it. So this is the 62-300. If you like this video, have any questions as well, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm certainly not as mechanically inclined as the person this came from, due to the fact that he was actually a master mechanic and worked at a mechanic shop, and he was actually doing all this work in his own shop, which is kind of cool. But anyway, again, if you have any questions, suggestions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see y'all later.